God, we were so good too.
Yeah.
On the top.
Hello and welcome to Community Watch. Today we'll be talking to the president and CEO of J. Smith Music and talk about the fascinating things going on. So stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
"7,000 high school students drop out every school day. That's a line of desks more than 4 miles long. We can keep students in school. Visit boostup.org and take the first step.
Welcome to Community Watch. Greg,
Doc,
how are you?
fine, and yourself?
I'm all right. I'm all right. So this is a show for you.
No, you the music person.
No. You are.
No. I'm pretty one track when it comes to music. And you have exposed me to a lot of different music. I must admit, like a lot of things, I must admit you have, but I'm sometimes amazed at the things you are listening to.
I gotta keep up.
I know, but I don't feel the need to, so I kind of like staying. When I listen to music, because I'm not a music buff, and people just not, I know people who can just rattle off names, hear the tunes, they can tell you the author and the artist and all of this. I'm not that. I just like listening to music, 70s, 80s, and I just like that where I don't have to do nothing. I can just kind of relax to it. And so there's a lot of songs that I like. I can't even tell you who the artist is or are, but I don't need to. I just know that's the song.
So you're not into Big Crit?
I never heard of them. Or her.
Well, our guest today will be joining us after this break. Jason Smith is, impressively knowledgeable on all genres, and I always learn a lot from him. And he's great to talk to. So,
And a dynamic
he's
artist.
very
himself.
talented,
Yeah.
very talented. In fact, we probably should get to the break now because I don't want to take any time away from him. Do not go away because Jason Smith will be with us right after this.
Your life is filled with opportunities to show the world you can take charge. It's waking up each day with a mission. It's working each day toward a goal. It's choosing to rise. It's charging forward with a purpose. It's changing the course of your life and taking charge of your future. If you're ready to be a Take Charger, enroll at Georgia Highlands College today.
Welcome back to Community Watch. We're thrilled to have with us again Jason Smith. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here again. It's been a while,
It has.
about 8 years.
I think that's maybe partly our fault, but mainly you've just been too busy.
Well, that's a good thing in my work. So, to say that I'm busy is a great thing. It's a blessing.
Well, I know just from seeing your name out there that you're, playing different gigs
Right.
locally. But I know that you're up to a lot more than that. So
Yes, I am.
what's going on with J. Smith Music?
Well, last year, about around this time, right after summer, I was introduced to a guy named Kenny Murray. Met him coincidentally in a music store in Atlanta. Was just going through, checking out some new gear, and he actually was opening up a new record label. So that was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. He's really going in the direction of smooth jazz. I don't know if anybody's familiar with smooth jazz, but the diehard jazz fans like John, where it's just instrumental, but smooth jazz is kind of softened up. They've added lyrics, so we actually got a contract from Pandora and Smooth Jazz Radio, and they've commissioned us to do a lot of tracks. So we've done a remake of Barry White's "Never Gonna Give You Up." So I know, Greg, you like
Oh,
some
yeah.
old soul and R&B. We've also done a remake of Roberta Flack's Feel Like Making Love.
Ah,
So been
Now,
doing
see,
that.
you call it smooth jazz. Now, see, I didn't know it was called smooth jazz, but there's one group, one album, whatever it's called, Streetwise. There's a lot of volumes of it. And that's
Right.
exactly what they do.
Right.
And so I do have those because it's like that old 70s music. Like you said, it's not purely just instrumentals.
Right.
Some vocals, and it's really relaxing.
Right.
So I'm interested to hear about this, man.
Yeah. Well, you can check us out on Pandora. The project is called KennyMurrayMusic.net, and he's also got a project called Kenny Murray and Friends. The personnel that's on this album, not only myself, but you guys know Jennifer Holliday,
oh gosh, yeah.
and you guys know India.Arie.
Yeah.
Well, a drummer that has toured with both of those individuals named Emra Kotan, he currently teaches at, don't get me wrong, Agnes Scott College in
Okay.
Atlanta. So he's joined us. We have a sax player from Virginia. We got a bass player from Mississippi. So this is the first time I've been paired up with musicians from across the country, and it's awesome.
So you've done tracks for an album.
Yes.
Is the album completed?
It's not done. It's not done yet. And actually, we haven't even titled the album yet, so it's still in process. So you guys getting a sneak preview today.
That's interesting, man. Now, but I'm curious because I know. So, are you still with all of this? Are you still doing your music school?
I teach online right now,
Okay.
and because when you're teaching people, you know, you have to give them that time. And now that I'm traveling and playing and working on albums, one of the biggest forms that I use now is internet teaching. So I'll do blocks of classes, and I've created this website, fantastic website I have now, which is jsmithmusic.net. You can actually go on, sign up, register, and enroll as a student, and you can get your block classes delivered to you weekly. So right now I have about 37 students that are online.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Now that's fascinating to me. How does it work that you can? I mean, I understand the taped lessons,
Right.
but do you get to hear your students as well?
Yes, there's some feedback, and I actually kind of get like a bio and a background on each student, and they're actually getting tailor-made lessons for them. Now, there's some just general courses that anyone can sign up for, and you know, those are already pre-scripted, and they just follow the classes weekly. But I've really been getting a lot of professional musicians who are interested in learning how to play jazz. And you know, like Greg was saying earlier, he's an old schooler when it comes to old school R&B, but you wouldn't believe the amount of people that are crossing over to jazz. And that's good news for him because he's a diehard jazz lover. But a lot of your diehard players now are wanting to experiment more, and jazz takes you there. So artists like Jill Scott, I know you like Jill Scott, they're just taking R&B and they're adding jazz elements to it, and they've titled it Neo Soul.
Yeah, so that's what I was getting to because I know Queen Latifah came out with a jazz album.
Right.
Really like that. So, you know, hip hop artist, but I don't know if it was the latest one, but I know she came out with more of a jazz album.
Right.
So that makes sense, though.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you teach jazz?
Oh my God. There's different theories. I mean, people want to equate music to math. And to me, and you go back and pull my college transcripts, that's the last thing I need to be doing. Music is more like conversation and language to me. When you start talking about the jazz idiom, because how jazz was, if you look at how jazz was created, a lot of the musicians couldn't read, and they would take popular show tunes of the day, like Oklahoma or Showboat, you know, the song Old Man River.
Yeah.
And they would just improvise on that tune. The tune may have went, Old Man River, Old Man River. They would sit with their instruments and they would just come up with different melodies to go on top of what was played. That's how jazz was born.
So it's really just a creative art.
Yes, it is.
So you're teaching people to talk.
Yes. Through one of the oldest mediums, music.
Yeah. I would love, I mean, I think it'd be fascinating to see that happening.
All right.
So, you know, maybe you ought to sell audience tickets.
Okay. You think you could do that? Think you could learn to be an improviser?
Well, not with music.
Okay.
I mean, I would say you-
our
you
show is
provide-
based
yeah,
on
you-
improvising. I mean, that's what we built the
Right.
show on. So,
Oh no, you look like a saxophone player to
I
me.
don't know. Well, no.
Okay.
All right, so you're doing the online lessons, and
Yes.
you are recording some music.
Yes.
When you record, do you record with other musicians or just do your track?
It's actually interesting. There's several ways to record. We can come in as one unit as a band, and that's the most chaotic way to record. It's just like when you see the old movies like Cadillac Records, and you see all the musicians in there and the camera's on, and they just turn on the tape and everyone plays. That's just open air recording. That you don't really see that anymore. And the musicianship and the level of expertise required to record that way is top notch, because you really can't make a mistake. Now we have what's called punch in, punch out. So if Greg is the bass player, he'll come in, he'll play the bass, we'll record it, and we'll just keep that recording as track one. I'll come in as the keyboard player, I'll hear Greg playing underneath me, and then I'll begin to play it. And we just begin to put these layers on top of each other. And that's how recording today is done in the modern studio.
How is it that, and I don't know if there's a regular pattern, but the first person to put down a track who has nothing to listen to, that must be challenging.
Really, the first person that goes in is the drummer. Drummer and bass player, because that's the foundation of any band. You go to Schroeder's or you go anywhere in Rome and you pull band members aside and you say, what's the foundation of this song? They're going to tell you it's the drums and the bass, because and that's the rhythm section. Then piano and everything else and vocals are added on top. But if you don't have a solid drummer and bass player, you're going on a train wreck very fast. That's the heartbeat of every band.
So, all right, so you're recording some music, and apparently you've been doing some traveling as well.
Yes, went to Switzerland. We wrote a song also called Mallorca, and you were stationed over in Spain, right?
Well, I was there a couple of times.
Did a
yeah.
med tour.
Yeah.
Mallorca's a party city, and Greg probably wasn't partying there. You know he was on duty, but it's
I'm sure that's why he was there.
but it's known as a party city, and we wrote a song called Mallorca, and we've actually we're in the works now of getting that song commissioned to be like an official song for that city.
And when you say we, who do you
That's myself, Kenny Murray, all the musicians that are on this project.
the recording?
Yes.
Okay. And all right, so you wrote the song about this city in Spain.
Right.
And so what is the process of getting a song recognized or adopted in that way?
Well, first thing you want to do is get it copyrighted so that no one can come and take that song from you and say it's theirs, just like we were talking about sampling. So you don't hear the song under something else and then you say, hey, that's my song. But there's a lot that goes into it, and there's different methods. For me, I prefer to have the lyrics in mind before I write. Some people do the opposite. They'll write and then they'll get the inspiration for the lyrics. But Mallorca is known for its beautiful beaches. It's white sandy beaches. It's a place you can relax, have a drink and just get away from the cares of the world, and that's what the lyrics are about. I don't want to give the lyrics away for that one yet because it's not released, but it's about getting away, relaxing, almost like the Calgon commercials of the 80s.
Yeah.
So it's a fun song.
So I'm curious, Jason, because I know when I was talking to you, I guess last March or April, whenever, you was talking about y'all was getting ready to go on tour. So you said y'all been to Switzerland and Spain?
And Spain.
Oh, wow. So
Jazz festivals were
Jazz
what we were
festival,
attending,
okay.
yes.
I'm saying, 'cause that's a big difference from Rome, Georgia.
Yes, it is. And I've talked to John about this subject. You really don't hear that much jazz in the South. And the irony was that jazz was invented in the South. But your diehard jazz listeners are in California. They're in New York, Philadelphia. And to do jazz in the South, to me, is an honor because you're out front and you're doing something that most people have forgotten about. Because what do you hear in the South more than anything? If it's not gospel, it's country, and then probably R&B third.
And I know in Georgia, hip hop, with the number of hip hop artists out of Atlanta, has a strong market here,
Right.
and people coming to make tracks with different artists. But I'm curious because I do know when I look at jazz now, and we can talk about this after the break, because I'm big into history.
Okay.
And I think when you talk about jazz now, it's not the same. I think it's like a lot of other sports like baseball, African Americans, we've kind of like dropped it.
Right.
But it's been picked up
Right.
and it's moving. And so I really would like to talk about that because I find it very interesting that a medium and a genre that was really created by people of color
Has been abandoned by
has
us.
been abandoned by those people. And
Right.
now when you start talking about some of your biggest artists in jazz, it's gone.
After this break.
After this break.
After this break.
Okay.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
If you're looking for a new pet that your family will cherish every day, consider adopting from a shelter. Shelters are the best places to find a new pet. That's where you'll discover healthy, loyal, and loving animals eager to become a part of your family. A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet, so bring home your new buddy today. To find out more, visit theshelterpetproject.org.
Welcome back to Community Watch. We're having a conversation with Jason Smith. And before the break,
Talking about the history.
you
of
posed
it.
a question.
Yeah, because
Reposed the question.
well, the situation that I see that when we talk about jazz now, I wonder if young people of color, primarily African Americans, even know jazz was created by African Americans and people of color. Because it's almost as if we have abandoned jazz to the level that when you start talking about a lot of top jazz musicians, the ones that I think are known nationally, internationally, whatever, are not black.
Right.
And I'm just like, what happened? Or if you know, like, when did that kind of happen? When did we kind of lose jazz? And when did it become this international sensation? Because internationally, jazz is very huge.
Yes, it is.
But like you said, but in the South, where it was created,
From my personal take on it, I've seen it in my own music career. Even in Rome, when I go around and I play and they see this African American man doing jazz, the first thing is, you're not from here. That's the first question that I get. You must be from New York, you're from somewhere else. And then when I tell them that I'm born and raised here, but then I have to tell them my story. When I joined the military, I made the audition and I was in the military's music program, which then sent me to Europe. And I got a chance to see real jazz lovers. The Europeans love it. But from the history that I had to learn later is that, yes, we did invent the art, and it was an art that was invented out of improvisation. A lot of musicians, they didn't have the education, so they just improvised on what they heard on the radio. Show tunes, it's just like if you think about it now. When you turn on the radio now, you're gonna hear Lil Wayne, you're gonna hear Katy Perry. Back in the 30s and 40s, when you turned on the radio, you heard show tunes. That was the big thing. So in the clubs that night, the jazz musicians would play the show tunes for people to dance to. Oklahoma, My Fair Lady, they became very good songs that were social gathering songs. But what I started to see in the 50s and 60s in my study is jazz opened up different genres like rock and roll. It opened up players to what? 70s, we started seeing the funk, and a lot of African Americans abandoned jazz during the 60s and 70s. And when the 80s came in, it was pop. That was Michael Jackson's era. You didn't really hear jazz. And one of the things that I read is that was very eye-opening. Most colleges didn't start teaching jazz to the 60s and 70s. Before then, you couldn't go and learn jazz. It was just something that had to be passed down, like generational. But what I started to see was a lot of white musicians started picking up jazz in the 60s and 70s. They started learning it. We abandoned it. But even today, when you look at a lot of jazz musicians, you really don't see that many piano players playing jazz. You don't really see a lot of African American piano players in jazz. Even myself, and I have to thank Dr. Sam Baltzer, y'all know him. In 2010, I think I was the first African American pianist to ever play here in Rome with the Rome Clock Tower Jazz. In 2010. And it's just, I don't know why we've abandoned it, but one of the things that I help new listeners to jazz do when I bring them in is a lot of people don't like jazz because there's no lyrics. Now there's lyrical jazz, then there's instrumental jazz. But lyrical jazz is for the beginners, so that's what you cut your teeth on. Then you learn the songs, and then you learn to appreciate the lyrics played just through the horn or through the piano or through whatever instrument that's playing that melody line. And that's how you fall in love with jazz.
I'm saying because if you you really have to listen to some of the greats for a minute or two to
Right.
truly appreciate it. I mean, because and I'm just thinking about Love Supreme.
Okay.
That's a very intense song, and you really have to kind of. For me, I had to had to listen to it time after a while because
Right.
To really, because it's so intricate and it's moving that it can be hard to follow especially if you're used to lyrics kind of guiding you
Right.
what to expect. Well, with jazz, it's no expectation. You can just be up and down. It's just so moving so fast that you
Right.
really have to kind of tune yourself to
Right.
listen to it. And I know Doc have sent me a couple of things, man. I was like, man, and I had to listen to it a couple of times in order to appreciate it because I'm so accustomed to having lyrics.
Right.
And lyrics kind of guide you because people can build up and it kind of crescendos and all that. But with jazz, that's not necessarily true.
Right.
It could just go from here to there just that quick.
Right.
And you may miss it. But I know that for me, the history of it is important. I think so many young African Americans that are in music, because I run into so many young kids who love music or the thought of music. Because
Right.
sometimes I question, it's music to them, but it's like, there's a history before we got here.
That's right.
And if you don't really understand that, it's like, yeah, I can appreciate this artist today, but half the music is sampled.
Right.
Half the music is sampled.
Right.
And so I just worry that that abandonment is going to continue
Right.
if no one is teaching young people about jazz.
You know what? I think music's going to be much like fashion. After a while, people are going to get tired of the same things, and that's what causes revivals. You go back. There was a song, and Greg probably remembers this, little Jamaican guy, and the song was, "You're most beautiful girl,
Sean
why
Kingston.
it'll never work."
Yeah.
If you go back and listen to the song, it was 1950s doo-wop with an R&B beat placed over it. And people just don't recognize the styles. But after a while, the hard hip hop, it's gonna get old. Anything gets old after a while. So the same way bell bottoms came back, I hope you don't have any, John. Some jazz may come back.
Well, don't you see, or hear, I guess I should say, some jazz at least, or some jazz influence
Yeah.
in a lot of contemporary music?
Yes.
So it's not like it's gone totally.
Right.
And I don't know.
It depends on if you're a purist or not.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm thinking though, when you go into your studio or wherever you go, because I was reading about one guy who's this major hit, and he became rich by selling packets of music, just like a hand clap, a cymbal, just
Right.
little packets of music. And so I'm thinking, like, can you create a saxophone, the sound of a saxophone, not just one tune, but how do you create that? I mean, and so I just wonder, like, will we have any musicians in years to come? Because I don't know, but
Right.
I'm thinking the number of people that are becoming really true good musicians probably is dwindling now, as music is now being made with technology. How many people are really pursuing music careers now when they can just go in their own room and just create this sound? What's happening to the musicians overall?
That's why I'm so busy. Because you're right, people are abandoning it, and you said something that's really important. How do you record? That's why people have left jazz, because you can do so many other styles of music simply with just a computer and a keyboard. But jazz has to be, to get that sound of the upright, the trumpet playing, you have to record jazz live. You don't see many jazz CDs being tracked out like I talked about earlier. You can't really record jazz like that.
I guess that's really a good thing, though.
Yes, because it makes us special.
Yeah, because I know I can appreciate a live band, And it's just something about live musician. It's a respect for the craft.
Right.
I mean, when you see some, like for instance, I love music, but I'm not a music aficionado. But just to watch people create these melodies and sounds with these different instruments, to me, it's fascinating, because I know I can't do it. But then when I hear some music and I know it's just been created, I can like it, but it's not the same appreciation for it.
Right.
Well, I know you have some strong opinions about contemporary music. But is there anything you're liking that you hear?
Outside of what I normally do,
Yeah.
I love neo soul. I'm liking that a lot. When I'm not thinking about work or music, I can listen to a lot of neo soul. I can listen to gospel, and depending on my moods, depending on the year, season, I listen to a lot of classical. And one of the things that I think I didn't address is there's a genre that no one really talks about, and that's ragtime. The Entertainer, Scott Joplin.
Mm-hmm.
That's really where you can see the bridge of classical turning into jazz, because your ragtime is very intricate like classical.
Are you, when you put together the songs, the list of whatever you're going to play for an appearance somewhere, do you rediscover things, rediscover older music that you kind of refashion?
I actually go back and visit music I think I missed altogether.
Yeah,
I was not a Billy Joel fan growing up. I am now,
really?
because I can appreciate the writing. Eric Clapton,
Yeah.
an artist that I didn't really have that exposure to until I begin to know how music is put together. I'm a big Earth, Wind and Fire fan. But yes, and audiences have actually helped me, believe it or not, in a subtle way. Doing a gig and planning a gig here in Rome is probably one of the most challenging, because it's so diverse. And I may go to a gig where the audience is, I've got different demographics, and I've got to do Billy Joel songs, I've got to do Stevie songs, I've got to do all
Are you
these.
doing New York State of Mind?
No, I'm not.
I am an Eric Clapton fan.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I know that you're doing, in addition to all this traveling, you're doing a lot of shows at different venues in the area. So people just need to be alert to find you.
And they can go on my website. I have a calendar of my
good.
performances, and
good.
that's www.jsmithmusic.net.
Okay. And I believe we need to get to a break, but we're not done yet, so don't go away. We'll be right back.
Open road, here comes the Heffley family.
Whether it's a short trip or a long haul,
Estimated time 47 hours.
they will beg,
You're hungry? I'm happy to provide.
they will plead.
Deep fried butter on a stick.
But whatever you do, don't wimp out.
Now you're talking.
Make them buckle up.
He can't hurt.
Remember, safety first. Cheese curls second.
Are you orange?
Welcome back to Community Watch. We've been having a conversation with Jason Smith. Give us your website address one more time.
That's www.jsmithmusic.net.
And check that out for where Jason will be playing somewhere in the area soon. If you haven't heard him, you really need to. And maybe in the future we could try to do a show where you could perform a little for us.
Great. I could bring some guests with me also.
Excellent. Then we won't have to ask any questions.
Any question?
Thank you so much for being
You're
with us.
welcome. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah. And thank you for being with us. We'll see you next time on Community Watch.